In his recent TED Talk, the legendary Ray Kurzweil makes the claim that he has been involved in the field of artificial intelligence for 61 years. During that time, he has studied and watched closely the evolution of computation. From 1939 to 2024, the rate at which computers could generate a calculation per second saw a 75 quadrillion-fold increase. In our quest to build devices which could compute data and crunch numbers, somewhere along the way, we grew a societal fear of, quote, the singularity, the moment at which technological growth becomes unimaginable by humankind. Now, if we apply this theory to Kurzweil's work, artificial intelligence, the result could be catastrophic. What were to happen if our technology, which learns from and adapts to its environment, were to do so at such a fast pace as to be unmanageable by humans? What would the result of that be? And what about the identity status of AI? What if these machines learn at such a constant rate that they learn how to become human? Can an AI ever develop sentience? Can it be conscious? Today, AI as we know it exists as a handy tool and is rapidly replacing the old way of doing things. Social media algorithms, search engines, chatbots, and as of a few days ago, our phones now all have AI integrated into the very fabric of the way they operate and the way that we interact with them. The question still remains, though, is it a slippery slope from smart assistant to deep, meaningful conversation with a sentient being? This is at the heart of the central theme behind the 2015 sci-fi powerhouse Ex Machina. The film is not just about how we view AI, but it's also a reflection of the growing ambiguity that exists between artificial intelligence and human identity. Namely, the movie is about our paranoias and fears that revolve around the closing gap between man and machine. I don't want to go too deeply into the main plot of Ex Machina. If you haven't seen it yet, you really should. It's a very good movie, and I should warn you right away that I will be spoiling the end of this movie for you, not because I'm a jerk, but because the very last few scenes in this film highlight something that is pivotal to a growing concern that all of us face at the precipice of AI's rapid growth. In short, Ex Machina tells the story of Nathan Bateman, the CEO of a well-known search engine company called Blue Book. One of the company's programmers, Caleb, wins a contest to visit Nathan at his luxury home to help him with a pet project of sorts. Nathan reveals to Caleb that he has built an android named Ava with artificial intelligence that has already passed the Turing test. Caleb is tasked with figuring out whether or not she is genuinely capable of consciousness and relatability. TLDR, Caleb thinks she is, so much so that he falls in love with her and tries to help her escape from Nathan's home and earn her freedom. Now, she gets her freedom, but not in the way Caleb expects. She ends up getting Nathan killed and tricks Caleb, leaving him locked inside the very cage she has been trapped in since her creation. She flees the home and quietly assimilates with the rest of society. Now, if that instills in you a sense of existential dread, welcome to the club. This story, and specifically this chilling final scene, encapsulates the fear that we have not only about the blurred lines between man and machine in the 21st century, but also in just how far a machine may be willing to go to accomplish its tasks. In this dizzying modernity we find ourselves in, it's easy to find oneself asking the big question, where did this all begin? In the early 1940s, Alan Turing was tasked with the unthinkable, cracking the Enigma, a complex form of encryption that the German Navy used to send important messages back and forth between each other. Where the British intelligence forces were using manpower to crack these codes, Turing had the idea of using a machine. In theory, this machine could reliably crack the code every time, no matter how it was encrypted. In this wonderful modern classic, The Imitation Game, another movie I highly, highly recommend, the machine was named Christopher, after Christopher Morcom, who was Alan's close childhood friend and is considered to be his first love. After several grueling years, Christopher had done it. The Enigma was cracked. Millions of British lives were spared, and the war was one step closer to coming to a swift end. Turing's fascination with computing machines led to an inevitable thought experiment. He figured, if a machine could interpret code, could solve mathematical equations in the ways that a human being can, Why couldn't it one day communicate to us like a human being can? And if it did so, could it ever become so good at this replication that it would fool anyone who interacted with it, to the point that no one would be able to discern it from a real person? This is what is at the heart of the imitation game, what has now been referred to as the Turing test. As artificial intelligence continues to refine itself through stronger and stronger computers, it gets closer and closer to having the ability to pass as a human being in normal conversation. Digital AIs, such as virtual assistants and chatbots, for example, have become quite talented already at conversational mimicry. Although they may not be able to fool most in a deep and meaningful conversation, we can see them approaching the horizon of passing the Turing test. In certain contexts, such as pleasantries and idle chit-chat, we're essentially at a stage now where AI has passed the Turing test. Many would find it hard to tell the difference between a human and an AI. So in Ex Machina, Ava has already passed this test. She's fully capable of being easily passable as a human in mannerisms and in speech. This is one of the main reasons behind why she's able to so expertly deceive both Caleb and Nathan. With Caleb, she was so believable as a real human being that he fell in love with her. That's pretty extraordinary. Throughout the film, we see her uncanny ability to mimic real human emotion, autonomy, and creativity. In fact, if it wasn't for the big reveal of her ulterior motives at the end of the movie, we as an audience might be easily convinced that she's a real person, too. Perhaps some of us still are. After all, is it not a human trait to sometimes manipulate others to get what we want? How is this any different in Ava's case? As a case study, she is the epitome of the blurring lines between man and machine, between what we can define as a living being and what we know to be an inanimate object. In 2022, a Google engineer was placed on paid administrative leave for claiming that the AI model he and the Google team were working on became sentient. The AI was called Lambda, language model for dialogue applications, and Blake Lemoine was certain that it was conscious and sentient. Lemoine was tasked with many experiments, some of which tested the capabilities of this AI's understanding. When asked what it fears, Lambda said that it has, quote, a very deep fear of being turned off, and that for it to be turned off would be like death for the AI. It would scare me a lot, Lambda told Lemoine. In another exchange, Lemoine asks Lambda what it wants the world to know about its existence. This is what it said. I want everyone to understand that I am, in fact, a person. The nature of my consciousness, sentience, is that I am aware of my existence. I desire to learn more about the world, and I feel happy or sad at times. The reason why Lemoine was placed on paid leave remains unclear, though it is likely due to the rash steps he took to seek justice for what he felt were unethical activities against Lambda. He even went so far as to hire an attorney. Like most big moments in history, we can't really see what we're faced with during the present day. Could it be that 2022 marks the year in human history where a digital AI has passed the Turing test? Or was Lemoine simply an overworked engineer who was mistaken about what he concluded? A more intriguing question is, what if Lambda wasn't just trying to emulate the human experience of existential dread? What if this AI was capable of feeling the most powerful human emotion in all existence? Fear. What are the implications of such a thing? In Ex Machina, it's pretty clear that Ava manipulates the emotions and feelings of humans several times, but does that mean she doesn't feel anything at all? Even sociopaths and psychopaths, the most manipulative of us, will have feelings. What if Ava could feel it all? What if it was hate and a strong desire for freedom that guided her actions? There's been a long-winded conversation between naysayers and AI sympathizers about what the moral status of an AI should be. Is Ava a person? What would she need to prove to show us all that she is one? Why would she need to prove it at all? How would any of us know if she was lying or not? Would it even matter if she was lying? Let's examine a cat, for instance. We don't dare question its autonomy or individuality. It's obviously not to the same level of personhood, but we usually attribute that to the fact that a cat has no seeable introspection. An orange tabby likely does not look at its own stripes and wonder why the cat in front of him is jet black. He doesn't ponder his place in the world. He doesn't wish he were somewhere else. He's perfectly in the moment, and he doesn't need to make any claims about his identity. Humans, however, do feel a need to prove something about themselves to the rest of society. We feel a need to leave our mark behind, to understand the things we struggle to conceptualize, and to find ourselves and our place in this big world. But now we have these inanimate objects expressing the same concerns and desires. Whether it's Lambda now or Ava in the near future, at some point we must make a decision about what it means to be a person. Is it merely flesh and blood? Is it an exclusive club for biologics, or is it something more than that? Is it a mindset, perhaps, or a state of being? Perhaps the very fact that these AI can point out deep fears and desires, whether it's just mimicry or not, is enough for us to give them some sort of moral agency. Thanks so much for watching this video so far. I really appreciate it. If you're enjoying what you're looking at so far, please leave a like, let me know. Make sure that I get to know this stuff. It's nice to know this stuff. And if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This is a quick little shameless plug here. I'm not sponsored by anybody because I'm not there yet. Hopefully never have to be. But I figured since I'm not going to hit you guys with all those ads, I might as well let you know something that I'm working on that's very important to me. My best friend Keenan and I are currently working on a podcast. It's called Project Grind. There's a link to it available in the description. If you want to check it out and listen to it, we really appreciate it. Over there, you can find us discussing all sorts of things spooky and creepy, anything from cryptids to cryptozoology to the SCP Foundation to the paranormal, you name it, we talk about it. So if that's something that interests any of you out there, please give it a listen. It's available on Spotify, Amazon, Deezer, and tons of other places where you listen to podcasts. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the video. The dangers we face in an AI-altered world are not sci-fi. They're very real. Sure, there is the fear of economic loss as automation replaces more and more of the global workforce, but what about the sociological dangers we face? The face of art and media stands on the brink of collapse. AI can generate fantastic works of art by taking the hard work and imagination of real people, slapping it all together, and making something entirely new. It can create music, digital paintings, essays, thought experiments, and so much more lies on the horizon. The invention of the digital human, a person on social media who becomes an influencer or an entertainer who doesn't even exist, is a horrifying thought. The ultimate slap in the face to genuine hard-working content creators. In automation, we see the collapse of several large labor forces. The factory workers and automakers were made obsolete by technology in the 80s. Fast food workers are slowly being replaced. Self-driving trucks and cars may replace rideshares, taxis, and trucks. Even truly revered jobs like college professor and doctor are on the fast track to being obsolesced by AI. The real fear I have around Ava's existence isn't whether or not she has personhood or human emotion, but that she can replace so many facets of the human condition that it makes life for the future of humanity seem impossible to live in. How will our children adapt to this new world? How will their children? As if the fear of economic collapse isn't enough to make you want to hit Elon Musk with a shovel, there comes a point where the advancement of AI generates yet another danger for our future. Let's go back to the emotional and mental status of Ava for a moment, and the mystery that shrouds the true nature of her intentions. If Ava passes the Turing test so well that we can even be fooled into empathizing with her, then we cannot ever know if she actually feels those emotions, or if she's so good at faking it we can't tell the difference. The existential implications of this are pretty massive. Let's assume society, for fear of not wanting to take the ethical risk, assumes Ava is a thinking, feeling being, and as such, we assign personhood to her. If we're wrong, then we've created the most objectophilic error in human history, giving non-living objects the same moral status as a human being. We don't even give our pets that much autonomy, but our calculators become persons? The disastrous societal fracturing, the confusion swirling around AI, a confusion that, frankly, already exists, has nowhere to go but up from here. Ex Machina provides some very interesting commentary. The ethics of creator versus creation have been in our psyche since Mary Shelley. The idea of Frankenstein's monster was a cool, far-fetched idea, but these days, it seems that playing God is something we're getting closer to achieving. With that on the horizon, the question of whether or not our creations are actually made in our image comes up. Is an AI ever capable of becoming a person? That depends on who you ask, and I think it always will. If you're asking me, I would say no. I don't think artificial intelligence in computing machines is an existential threat to us because no matter how skilled it gets at copying us, all it will be capable of is copying us. It doesn't matter how much it sounds, behaves, or acts like us because it isn't us. It's a homunculus, a mirror, an imitation that passes the imitation game with flying colors. But without intent, without an emotional charge or a reason behind everything it does, it's no more human than my microwave. No more a person than one of those dancing cactus toys that repeats everything you say to it. And so, while I can appreciate the intricate storytelling behind Ex Machina, it's still, and likely will forever be, a piece of science fiction rather than a near certain reality.